Welcome to Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue. And I'm Malcolm Berman, and my co-host is Deborah Manning. Hey, Deb.
Hey, how you doing, Malcolm?
Does anyone ever call you Deb? I never call you Deb. I call you Deborah.
Actually, it's funny. People have started now calling me Debs, Debs, Debs. So I was never a Debbie particularly. And my uncle Jack wanted me to be called Deborah, which I thought was a little bit too highfalutin. But yeah, I love Debs because it's easy to say and it's blah 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 and all of that. I'm everybody seems to think, well, she's very formal about things. I'm not at all.
But
I'm not
never
really.
Deb. Never just straight Deb.
Yeah, Deb is great. Deb is great.
I
So I'm here. I'm here in South Carolina. I'm a former news reporter out of Los Angeles. I'm a native Californian, moved here 5.5 years ago to, of all places, Greenville, South Carolina. And it's been a dream come true. Once again, Greenville reminds me so much of the way Southern California used to be in the 80s and the 90s. A lot of melting pot of people, of nationalities, of religions, and friendly people. You can talk to people. And I like that. You're gregarious. I'm gregarious. I enjoy chatting with people.
I just picture the Hare Krishna group passing your house. Because I remember when I came out from New York, the Hare Krishnas were always on 42nd Street by the public library.
There you go.
And when I came out to California, they were in Venice Beach.
Yes.
And actually, it was very interesting. I think I forget what holiday it was, either beginning or the end of the summer, where they had, I think it was the end of the summer, where they had tents out there and they had the elephants coming down the road. It was some sort of Krishna holiday.
There you go. Now I have to ask you, I do like the Hollywood look with the dark glasses.
Yes, I'm doing now the celebrity thing. All my life, I've been like not in front of the camera. I've been behind the camera, more or less anonymous. Yeah. Now all of a sudden, for the last year since the pandemic, and we've been doing the Zoom, I've been in front of the camera.
There you go.
So now I'm hitting my celebrity mode.
There you go.
In fact, we were.
Well, it's very funny that as I've been talking to the people that I've met, and I've mentioned things about the podcast, people are very interested in listening to two divergent points of view. And I said, but it's like America is right now. We've got one side saying, quote unquote liberal, and the other side saying, quote unquote conservative. Now, I bill myself as an independent. And as you and I have had long conversations about the last administration, I had as much criticism of the last administration as I had with other administrations, because once again, it's that reporter's background. Right is right, and you need to look at some of the values that the presidency has, and that moves us to our first topic, which is I understand that there was a bilateral agreement on the infrastructure bill, and it was announced by President Biden yesterday. However, I must say, in watching the press conference, I was a little confused, more than a little confused. He started talking in a whisper. So he was whispering just like this, and he said this, and he said that. And I don't understand. Now for emphasis, I could see it once or twice, perhaps, but he did it for quite a long period of time in the press conference. Mm-hmm. That concerns me, Malcolm. Did you see the press conference?
I didn't see the conference. I saw the end of it, which he sounded quite normal. From what I see of everything that they're talking about, his limited capacities, I have not seen that. And I've seen that's in my estimation, that's been totally exaggerated. It's like,
I don't think we're not doctors. Nobody's a doctor. He hasn't had a cognitive test. And I don't know that we ever will have a cognitive test, but bottom line is we're not doctors, and neither are the news people that are talking about it. I'm just talking about it on a regular person-to-person basis. Yeah. Malcolm, if you suddenly started to talk to me in a whisper, I would be a little bit concerned about that.
Well, I don't think you should be concerned. If I started talking to you in a whisper, I think Anna should be concerned and Fish should be concerned. That's about the only time I whisper.
Well, Biden apparently went quite a bit of the news conference whispering, which was very unusual. And at any rate, but we now have the vice president down at the border. She finally decided to go to the border. Unfortunately, all of the stuff that I've seen, she's not actually been at the border. She has been at the office of the border, the port of entry in El Paso. So she's gotten some great shots of file cabinets and doors, locked doors of the El Paso Immigration Center, which incidentally, that El Paso Immigration Center is the place where people legally go to present themselves for entry into the United States. She did not go, unfortunately, to the other places where the cartels are delivering. Last month, 180,000 immigrants to our border. Those are at least the people that we caught. So
just an aside from that, I'm speaking to a friend of mine who lives in El Paso.
Yeah.
You realize El Paso is closer to Los Angeles than it is to Houston.
Interesting.
Interesting thing. Okay, first. Let's get back to the president and his conference, his news conference. I mean, what got me confused, and not necessarily his whispering, is what they agreed upon.
Did they agree on anything, actually?
Yeah, they agreed on something, but then they didn't. They agreed on one package, and I don't know if they agreed on the other package. You know, there's another package which more is humanitarian infrastructure.
Unfortunately, they did not. That's the news that came out this morning that I was monitoring CNN and MSNBC and also Fox. And apparently that second, which was the humanitarian package of $4.6 trillion, they don't have agreement on that. And unfortunately, President Biden said, if we don't have agreement on both packages that must go through, both have to go through, then I'm not going to sign either one. The first package, I think, I don't have a problem as an independent supporting it. It's for roads and bridges and highways and airports and what have you, the traditional infrastructure. And heavens to Betsy, as we've seen through what happened, what was it, yesterday, where the building collapsed on Miami Beach? I mean, oh my Lord,
yes,
it's a 40-year-old building.
Sunnyside or something. It was outside of Miami.
Surfside, I think it's called. Oh my Lord, just I can't. It didn't look like America. It looked like it should have been in a third world country or something. But
yeah,
it collapsed, and they're trying desperately to find survivors. And
well, that's going to be the tragedy, because I think it was like 65 units were destroyed, and they've only, I think, pulled out 2 people.
Yeah,
they're alive. I think 4 people are dead. So it seems to be there's going to be a lot more death there.
So I think infrastructure is a critical part of renewing America. I know that when my husband and I came across the country 5.5 years ago, we came on Interstate 40. And ironically enough, as we were coming across this beautiful bridge, suspension bridge in Memphis, and we could look across to see the city, it was absolutely glorious. We went across that bridge, and it was absolutely a beautiful, beautiful bridge, beautiful sights you could see of the city. Well, they've closed that bridge now down. Why? Because they have infrastructure problems with it. So I think that it's important that we spend the money to get these bridges, roads, airports, all of the infrastructure taken care of. I mean, we haven't taken care of it for how many decades?
Yeah. Well, you're right. I think just last week, and I forget where it was, where a footpath over a freeway collapsed.
Oh no, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, I forget where it is now, but just a minor thing, just a footbridge over the freeway.
Yeah, right.
But getting back, one of them, I think, if he gets bipartisan cooperation, they can get to 60 votes. The problem is parts of the Dems may not like that because of the way it's structured, the liberal portion of the things, and the other one, he can get by. I forget where I forget the term that they use now.
Well, he's threatening on the $4.2 trillion humanitarian grouping that was segregated from the infrastructure of the 1.2 trillion. The Dems feel as though they can get it through reconciliation.
Yeah, reconciliation by just a simple majority.
Yeah, well, the problem is going to be, I mean, at this point right now, Joe Manchin is still holding the line, as Kristen Sinema as well. saying that, no, we've got to have bipartisan
Yeah,
agreement.
I'm totally against that. I say the Democrats have it. And a lot of the things they want, the people are in favor of. I mean, when they do the polls, it was like 65, at least 65% have agreed with a lot of the original proposal that he had, that Biden had. It was the Republican Party that disagreed, and basically it was McConnell that disagreed.
I think what the concern at this point right now is that the Fed is continuing, because of COVID, and well, they did, to continue to print money. And the worry, of course, is if you continue to print money, people have plenty of cash in their bank accounts that will lend to inflation. That's basic economics, because you have lots of dollars chasing fewer goods. And we have fewer goods because at this point right now, the supply chain really has not been reestablished since the pandemic. It's slowly coming through. But the worry at this point right now is that we're monetizing inflation. And that does concern me. I'm glad to see that we're starting at many states, 21 to 25 states have decided not to accept the federal unemployment insurance any longer, get people back to work. And I agree with you, if we need to raise salaries, that's fine. Interestingly enough, Disney just opened up full time. They normally had 32,000 individuals working the parks, all of the parks. But according to Fox News, they're down to less than 16,000 individuals. And I hope that they're getting raises in their salaries, which they probably should get. But once again, you've got then some productivity, and at least we have the parks open.
Well, the other thing which I look, especially big business or like Disney, how much does CEO of Disney make?
Oh, get me going.
I mean, all these CEOs of the major companies are earning in the billion, well, not in billions of dollars, but well, maybe with the stock options, with their bonuses, they're earning 10, 20, 30 million dollars a year, and they'll earn that even though sometimes the company is not doing well. I could see if it was based on the profit of the company. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's not, and then they bemoan the employees that work in the park. Oh, they're going to make $15 an hour. This is going to put us out of business.
Well, interestingly enough, labor and competent labor is in real short supply. So I've always said to people, even my age, that if you wanted to go back to work, you have a wealth of experience, you have a wealth of common sense, and those are traits that managers want, and they're going to have to pay for it. And in fact, that's exactly what should be happening. I think you're probably going to see some salary increases for those 13,000 individuals working for Disneyland.
But the problem is you're talking about managers. Now, I'm not sure what constitutes a manager. I mean, now you go to a store and you ask for the manager. The manager is 28 years old. And
what's wrong with that? Wait a minute, that's a previous question.
And been in the business world 5 years. Go over to a bank and ask for the manager.
Yeah.
The manager has absolutely no power. You go. I remember the days. Now I'm feeling like an old man. Remember the days, the 30, 40 years ago, when you went to the bank manager, and if something didn't go the way it should go, or you had to bend a rule. The teller would say, "Oh, you have to go to the manager for that," and the manager would say it, and he could sign it.
Yep.
And his authority, then you could bend the rules. Now, if you want to bend the rule, you go to the manager. He says, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it."
I think you need to change bank, because I know the bank that I go to, I raise holy hell when I can't get what I want. I go to the manager, and the manager has the power. And that's the way the corporation has been set up at Bank of America, the bank you love to hate, because I used to work there. But that manager was able to go ahead and had certain powers that solved the situation and solved my problem. You need another bank. I don't know about Bank of America, but
I used to go to Bank of America in Hollywood, and the problem was, I hate to say this, nobody spoke English. They spoke different languages. But every other teller was from another nationality, which ain't bad, except they didn't understand what I was talking about. And I spoke New Yorkese.
Well, there you go.
Actually, that I could understand. Most people in the rest of the country don't understand what I'm talking about.
There
And
you
if you're
go.
listening to me now on MalcolmPresents.com, if you have problems talking to me, email Deborah. She'll correct me. But anyway, I think now that the Dems have the power, so to speak, they should ride roughshod the same way that the Republicans will or did
Well,
the past 4 years. If
they
you
better
want something done,
they better damn well not, because once again, this is a republic, and there needs to be compromise. There needs to be consensus, because once again, the Democrats won X number of voters, but there was 75 to 78 million Americans who vote the other side of the party, and that's quite a number of people.
But Deborah, what is consensus? Is consensus of the people who are elected, or the people when they take the polls to find out what they want? As I said before, I think again, we can get the survey. The survey agreed with Biden that the majority of the people, not Republicans, not Democrats, but the majority of the people, and I think it was something within the 60 percentile, agreed with what he wanted to do across the board, as far as raising taxes on corporate people to get the money, of raising taxes on those over $400,000, of doing a rich man's tax, of doing the Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, of having him taxed, of having the corporate taxes raised. I mean, they were in favor of it. It's the Republican Party.
Well, I have to
Donald who's against it.
I have to disagree with that, because in many cases the polls are skewed. You can make polls say anything you want them to say. That's number one. Number two, I think to blame the Republican Party on this and that, what have you. Once again, there's an opposing point of view, as we have opposing points of view. But as we have worked out, we need to come to a separate compromise on things. So once again, they had an infrastructure agreement at 1.2 trillion dollars. Much of that was coming from unused COVID money and unused unemployment money. So in other words, you're able to stay within a budget. But the excess stuff that is coming in with childcare and a whole variety of different other social types of problems really need to be addressed and need to be debated on a separate issue, not combined with this infrastructure situation. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, there were the two different bills, but the other one we could pass. One we pass one way, and the other we pass the other way. But again, I think they should do away with the filibuster.
They can't. They can't.
If they're killing everything. What do you think?
No. They can't have. We can't have a dictatorship of simply one party. We're a two-party country, at least a country.
But then we're not getting anything done. What about that they turned down the Senate committee for, or the Congressional committee for the January 6th, because there's nothing to it. It was like these weren't people, these weren't rioters. They were just visiting the Capitol. I mean, what the bull is that?
What in the? I mean, a congressional study. We had congressional studies on, for example, the Russian collusion situation that went on for 4 years, and they found out that nothing was going on.
Wait, time out. That
back to January 6th. They have arrested 500 individuals.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what's interesting about those 500 individuals, they have had 5 people now convicted of not anything other than misdemeanors. The misdemeanors also were very interesting. If you look at the actual charges that they have admitted to, are things like protesting. What's interesting about that is we saw dozens and dozens of protests that take place after the George Floyd murder, and I say it is a murder. And yet, once again, it's these individuals that are once again being targeted. I think at this point right now, you know exactly what happened on the congressional study. What more can you?
Okay. Well, wait, I just want to go back to the study that you said the Mueller investigation, where
Sure.
before anybody had a chance to read it, Barr said, "Oh, no collusion, no obstruction," and now at first coming out, "Hey, you know something? He jumped the gun. There might have been collusion. There might have been obstruction. He was interpreting before anyone had a chance to read the damn thing." Now,
Well, if you read it cover to cover, my dear, there was no collusion that was going on.
okay, you read it. Well, number one, I didn't read it cover to cover. And number two, I doubt whether more than 1 or 2% of the American people read it cover to cover.
Well, that's why you have news reporters.
Yeah,
They read it cover to cover.
right, but most of the reports that I have, there was nothing that Mueller said said there was no collusion or that there was no obstruction.
No. He said specifically there was no evidence of collusion, not that there was no collusion. That's a very important situation.
Okay.
It's a differentiation because once again, if there's no evidence of collusion, that you're talking about evidence in court, that does not mean there could not possibly be collusion, but there is no evidence, no facts of collusion. So at this point now, it was a made up charge, and they've already found out where the source of that is, unfortunately, from some Democratic strategists. And I scratch my head as an independent. I mean, if we had a real serious situation with Trump, that should have been taken care of immediately, not
but the whole thing with Trump and what they said, especially Barr, you can't prosecute a sitting president. So it didn't matter whether they did it or not. You couldn't do anything about it. But I think possibly now with the next year or two, a lot more is going to come out that we can talk and argue about that. But the problem is, if anything that happens that we indict Trump, the whole thing I can picture. Oh, we're persecuting him now that he's not in office, and it's all jumped up, and it's all and the QAnon. Oh, it's all to get revenge about what he did. I mean, that's Bill also. I mean, he's been years before he was president.
The other worry I must say that I do have is the fact that there is some evidence, solid evidence, that we do have compromises between the Biden family, perhaps not the president, but the Biden family, and China. China is not a friend of ours. China is an adversary of ours. And that does concern me.
No, well, now what you're doing is you're changing the topic. That's another story. But I don't see number one.
Talking about people that are able to pull strings, our adversaries able to pull strings on the Biden family. And we have seen a number of bits of evidence coming on through, and I find it very disturbing. He had indicated the fact that his son was going to absolve himself from any being on the boards of any Chinese companies. And in fact, Hunter Biden has not done that.
But number one, again, now we're changing the topic again.
Oh,
we're changing the topic.
We're talking about collusion.
Well, actually, what I want to say again, talking about collusion, you know what the biggest collusion is?
What's that?
The fact that there's no campaign limits, spending limits. There's no control of what corporations can give to the major campaigns and the major candidates, and they're buying them. I think you agree with me on that.
I agree with you on that. I'm very concerned with dark money. I don't think that should be allowed. That's number one. They also have a limitation on the number of dollars that an individual like yourself or myself can give to a certain candidate or even to a political party. It's $2,500. And I think that should be applied across the board to avoid the situation with dark money. I also think that Facebook, who also provided funds to various election departments in various states, should be banned from doing that. I don't understand how money can be given from a Mark Zuckerberg to various election departments in various states.
I agree. I don't care who's giving the money for what causes, or George Soros. They should not be able to
Influence.
influence. I mean, what's ridiculous are the House of Representatives. They have to run for election every 2 years.
Mhm.
As soon as they're elected, what do they have to do? They have to go campaigning for funds to be reelected.
That's right.
There's no break time between.
That's right.
So they are totally dependent on big donors. And who are they going to side with?
That's right.
It's just human nature. You're gonna,
Of course it is.
you're like the hand that feeds you.
That's right.
And
that does not necessarily benefit normal, average, everyday Americans like you and me.
So excuse the expression, the whole system is fucked up. I sort of get passionate with that, and I use my words judiciously.
I like it. I like it.
But
moving on to another topic, we're now starting to see, it's very interesting, parents are becoming more and more interested in what's being taught in the classroom. And you saw in Loudoun, I believe it was Virginia, that the school board had a group of 250 parents who had signed up to oppose the critical race theory that was being taught in the classrooms. After 50 of those comments were made, the board decided to call the meeting adjourned, and they called the police and they started arresting parents. Now, I must say, this is an elected group of people, the school board, and I'm a little bit stunned at the fact that you're arresting parents for simply wanting to say, I don't want my child taught critical race theory, which is a theory. It's not even scientific, that races are part of a dominant and a submissive society. It's not.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, let's have an interview with some American Indians, Native Indians, and find out if there is a critical race theory, what they believe in. Yeah, it's unless you can see. I don't know if it was you I had a talk with about it, or unless you could, I forget the expression, step in another person's shoes and see what they have gone through. I don't think you could, knock the issue with. So, I think there is I mean, when I was growing up, there was a certain division of people.
But you don't need to teach children that because they're white, they're an oppressor, and because they're a different color than white, they are the oppressed. That simply is essentially at this point right now creating a race war.
No, yeah, but
world can't I be friends with my next door neighbor John, who's black, and his white wife? Why can't I be? I'm not the oppressor.
Yeah, but you can teach that there is a group oppression. You could do it with which again is the expression. I mean, when I grew up was WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. I mean, they were, I think, 80% of the population. And they were, their groups, their churches, there's clubs, there are golf clubs, there's, of the wealthy that are exclusive. And being exclusive doesn't mean that you had to have the money. It means that you had to be white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. You couldn't be black, you couldn't be Latino, and you couldn't be Jewish. And you couldn't be Catholic.
Yes, but the amendment, the 14th Amendment, and I do believe that you're going to see that critical race theory will go to the Supreme Court because it is in violation of the 14th Amendment, which talks about equal protection under the law. Delineating people because of their skin color is not equal protection under the law. It is reverse racism. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I happen to be white. I had no choice.
No, I know. I'm not holding you guilty, but what I'm doing is I'm saying that there was, and there still is, and there will be. And to say that a person, a black person, or a Latino person, or a Jewish person has the same mobile abilities that a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant has, and that there was no difference or ever a difference, is denying what the fact was. It's like denying I'm not responsible for slavery. And slavery, I think what they fail to talk about when they talk about slavery, they think it's an American phenomena that we discovered slavery. Slavery had been long time before
Thousands of years.
before America. I mean, the Jews were slavery in Egypt, and who built the
Absolutely.
pyramids? It was the Jewish labor. The
Absolutely.
days of
And
Moses,
I don't
we
think
were slaves.
I don't think that we're in any way going to be changing human nature. But what you can change is you can have laws that says you cannot discriminate against individuals based
Right.
on the color of their skin,
Right.
their sex, their sexual preference, and what have you. And you enforce those particular laws. I have a problem with having school kids have a cartoon showing various skin colors, and they're supposed to circle their skin color, and then they're supposed to be writing an apology if they're white to any of their other individuals that happen to be not white.
Yeah,
I have problems with corporations teaching white men, taking them into these wonderful conferences and teaching them about the fact that they have quote unquote white privilege and that they need to go ahead and write letters of apology. I happen to be a white woman. I was sexually harassed. I was prevented from getting certain positions in terms of corporations and what have you. But how did you overcome that? You became better and brighter. You made sure that you had the education that you needed to be able to do it. I got my MBA from Pepperdine University, and all of a sudden, magic. So the problem I have is I just don't want to have the bigotry of low expectations. Blacks, Hispanics, Cubans, Asians, they all have an opportunity here in America. Otherwise, like I say, why would so many people want to come to America if it was racially insensitive and racially systemically racist? Why would so many different nationalities want to come here? Why? Because there's opportunities here. We Americans need to make sure that those opportunities stay open to all.
Wait,
including whites.
But which nationalities and which group try to come here? The middle class? No, it's the poor people, because in their countries they're number one, there's no they can't get anything financial. There's such a strong class system.
Plenty of middle class trying to come here as well.
Okay, I don't know exactly, but I know that there are more people. The people that are going through the southern border are not the middle class people. They're the ones that are afraid. There's no food, there's no work in their country, and they're afraid of gangs, and they're afraid of crime, and they're also afraid of their own governments.
And why in the world are we throwing away all of the barriers and all of the protections to the United States when, in fact, interestingly enough, you have cartels that are demanding anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 passage money? And how are these people getting through? Well, they're coming up here to the United States, and then they have an opportunity to work as slaves, and get a chance to send all the money back to the cartels. Otherwise, their families get beaten up. So I don't understand how the Biden administration, they talk about humanitarianism. How can it be humanitarian if, in fact, you open the border that way, you allow the cartels to take advantage of very, very poor people, $5,000 to $10,000 to be able to get up here, and then force them to go ahead and work and pay back the cartels? I'm just not getting it.
Well, number one, the border like that and smuggling, undocumented aliens has been around for a long, long time. Secondly,
it wasn't during the last administration.
It was during the last administration.
They put a kibosh on it, and they asked at this point right now that asylum, and that they should have had more asylum judges assigned to it, but asylum judges went ahead and took the cases, and those individuals were asked to stay in Mexico, which Mexico said, we're willing to go ahead and do that. I mean, even the Guatemalan president said to Vice President Harris, you folks, the Biden administration, you guys brought this on yourself. This flood of people.
Well, the Guatemalan, I think it's Guatemala, where his brother is here in jail for narcotics, and he's connected to he's connected the cartels in Guatemala. But anyway, number one, I didn't want to talk about that. That's a show unto itself. Number two, our time is up. Number three, I agree with you. You can't blame what happened in the past for what you do. Number four, you're responsible for your own self. And then the story, and I think it was Dick Gregory, the black comedian.
Yes.
And, I attribute to him, but to someone of his ilk that said, I had two friends. One was a convict, and one was an attorney, a well-to-do attorney. They both of them were black. And I asked the convict, I said, how come, you went the way you did? And he said, hey, Dick, what could I do? My mother was on crack and she was a hooker. My father deserted me. He was an alcoholic when he lived there, and he beat me up, and then he deserted us. So what else could I do? Dick Gregory said, yeah, that sounds good. And he said, my friend who is a successful attorney, I asked him, how come you're successful? He said, well, my mother was a crack whore. My father was an alcoholic that deserted us. And I vowed to myself, I'm not going to let that happen to me and my kids. So you take the same thing, the same circumstances, and you create your own reality.
Bravo.
So, I mean, ultimately, no one's responsible for you but you.
Thank you.
So anyway, on that note, and we disagree, and we can talk about immigration, we can talk about.
We actually agree on many, many things, and we need to bring this forward to as many people as possible. I'm talking up our conversation because we do find common ground. We do definitely have disagreements, but
Yeah.
we do have common ground. We're Americans.
Right.
We're Americans.
We're also talking about issues.
That's right.
And
that's right. We hope that anybody who's watching this, please spread the word to your friends.
Right.
And if you'd like to go on the air, come on now.
Well, that's what I do when I share my sauce. I say, help, like us, subscribe to us, and share it with a friend, and help spread the word.
That's right.
Anyway, on that, it's been fun. We should probably have a daily show.
We'd have lots to talk about.
What we need is a underwriter.
So if there's anybody out there who would like to underwrite the two of us.
No, because what I like to do is, or anyone that wants to volunteer to do research work for us.
Yep.
Because that's also needed. Or anybody out there that I'm good at doing shows, I'm good at talking, but I don't know the social media, the marketing. I'm the first to admit it.
There we go.
So if you're out there and you like our show, let us know. You can contact me at malcolmpresents@gmail.com.
Excellent.
Let me know, and otherwise, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week, sweetie.
Send my love to Fish.
And my love to Anna.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.